It's 5 in the morning on the data center floor. For the technicians who keep these racks chilled and running, the physical reality of artificial intelligence is miles of cables and a quiet, steady hum. Inside these racks, developers have long faced a mathematical ceiling. Traditionally, AI generated text one word at a time, a sequential process that limited how quickly ideas could be tested and deployed. This week, that ceiling shifted. 4 separate technological and policy launches landed almost simultaneously, targeting the delays that keep builders waiting on their machines. These shifts go beyond simple software updates. When the latency between a prompt and a result disappears, it changes the speed at which a person can iterate, moving from waiting on a tool to thinking alongside it. At this glass workstation, we can see the result in real time. As the technician types, entire blocks of code appear ahead of her cursor, predicting her intent before she finishes the line. This acceleration comes from Google's dual launch, the speed-optimized Gemini 3.5 Flash, and an experimental model called Diffusion Gemma. Diffusion Gemma utilizes a mixture of experts architecture. Rather than routing requests through one massive system, it activates specialized nodes to handle specific parts of the task. It then uses parallel token generation. Instead of generating code sequentially, dozens of tokens materialize on screen simultaneously. Where older code assistants made you wait for text to trickle down the page, this setup allows for instant inline infilling and the deployment of autonomous subagents. These models are lightweight enough to run locally on the developer's own hardware, removing the need to send data back and forth to a distant server. When the machine handles the repetitive boilerplate instantly, the developer stops managing syntax and starts solving the high-level problems that actually require their attention. Speed on a local machine is only half the story. The other half is determined by who has the legal right to use these models in the first place. This week, the U.S. Commerce Department cleared a regulatory barrier that had cut off global access to frontier AI. Officials lifted export licensing requirements on Anthropic's Fable 5 and Mythos 5 models, ending a 19-day ban that had kept these tools off the international market. Overnight, international developers and massive enterprise networks regained access to these reasoning engines, allowing global projects to finally resume. To manage the safety risks of a wider release, Anthropic is now proposing an industry-wide framework for scoring jailbreak severity, working with partners like Google and Microsoft to standardize security. Innovation requires more than just efficient code. It relies on a steady, predictable supply of access for the builders who use it. This shift toward reconnection is also visible on the geopolitical map, where long dormant channels are beginning to move again. In Qatar, indirect technical negotiations between U.S. and Iranian teams have officially commenced. This is a significant moment. It is the first diplomatic engagement between the two nations since the outbreak of war on February 28, 2026. For now, these are technical-level discussions. Iran's top negotiator stated that high-level talks remain on hold until the U.S. addresses specific financial memorandums, including the release of frozen funds. Much like the unblocking of AI models, these talks represent a move away from total isolation toward a difficult, necessary process of re-establishing contact. Back in the data center, the morning light shows the physical hardware that makes this entire global movement possible. The final piece of the week's momentum comes from Etched, an AI chip startup that just raised $800 million in a round backed by TSMC-linked investors. Etched coupled that funding news with the reveal of a specialized inference chip, an architecture designed specifically to deploy the high-speed models developers are now demanding. When you look at the full week, the pieces align, with specialized hardware, parallel software generation, and updated export policies are all moving in the same direction. While the AI models and the diplomatic talks are still works in progress, the technical and regulatory constraints that defined the last month are beginning to ease. With several major operational barriers removed in a single week, the focus is no longer on whether the tools can be reached. The real question is, now that they are here, what will people build with them?